Good morning. So this is a little odd to be standing up here and have four of you right there. But I also know because we are online, I will probably stay put, even though it would be my preferred way to just kind of step down there and we could pull our chairs around and have a little conversation, which is probably what we'll do. But thank you for coming this morning on a cold, snowy morning. Although it is nice when you come inside the church to feel the warmth that's here. And I noticed today as I came up from downstairs, I was struck by how bright it seemed to be here in the sanctuary. And of course, with the new light bulbs going in and all the work that's gone on in here, it really is really pretty incredible. So our task today is just really to talk about our preliminary results from the 2024 year, keeping in mind that we don't really close the books until everything has been finalized, and that should be late February or early March that we should have all of that information. And then we'll look at the budget that the vestry approved, a little bit about the capital campaign update, where we are with that, and then talk about what will be upcoming with that final phase. So that's kind of our approach for this morning. You have a handout. It's 4 pages. The handout on the first page is just basically a brief summary of our preliminary budget, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. The second page is our operating budget as we move forward with a comparison from this year's budget to the 2025 year budget. And I always like to mention when we talk about budgets that budgets are a plan. They're not exacting, although we try to get them as exact as we can, but there are some things that we have to either assume based upon past performance financially, or what we believe we're seeing that could be potential trends. I do want to, the third page, talk just a little bit about our financial overview, where we sit right now as at the end of December. And then just a reminder on the last page about our Cultivating Courage, Connection, and Care capital campaign, where we are with that and where we need to go next. So with that, I have I guess I want to start by emphasizing my belief about finances. Yes?
The handout, I guess, was not provided to those
Online, correct. That's my understanding.
digitally to share.
Yeah, and so what I'll do is try to speak to that as we go through. I'm not aware that there was anything that was digitally prepared, and I apologize for that. I want to start by just once again emphasizing that what we are about as a church is not about how much money is raised or pledged. We're about a mission. We're about following what our call is. Mickey and I just a few minutes ago had a little bit of a conversation about everything that we see in this sanctuary, including the work in the balcony and in the AV room, was somebody's plan. Now, we could say, well, that was the individual donor's plan. That would be accurate, that they wanted to support and help, but there was something that moved them. There was something that called them to say, let's do this now. And so I think that's what we continue to see when we talk about our finances is the parish family is moved to pledge as they feel that they can, and in this past year with the capital campaign really go above and beyond. And I continue to believe we're being supported and guided by the Holy Spirit through God's will. So with that, there are 3 important bullets I wanted to mention, and you can see them on this front page, but I do want to call them out. Our total revenues, when we compare it to our total budget, was less than we anticipated by about 1.4%. Keeping in mind that pledges and offerings are the biggest piece of that, but we also have these other income sources. And this past year, we were fortunate to have had the employee retention funds that came from the IRS that provided $69,000. But our total was down some. And if you look at the chart that's below that, the table, you could see what we budgeted and what was actual. Our total pledges were less. Now, the pledges and what we collected from pledges was down about $13,000. What we had calculated in the budget was a much higher plate offering because that had been the trend data in the past. We were seeing more coming in with unpledged offerings, and that's something that we've always kept data on. And so that was really the biggest discrepancy in terms of pledges. But our other revenues, again with the ERC money that I just mentioned, helped bring that up to above what we had budgeted. So we ended up with our total revenues down about $11,000 or 1.4%. When we go into our expenditures, they were more than the projected revenue. However, the caveat there is we had a planned decision supported by the vestry, which was to use money from investment fund accounts to support the associate rector for 2 years. And that we knew that we couldn't just automatically add a person and see our funds come up to that. So that was an important part. And when you look at our total payroll and benefits, that's largely due to the fact that we added Mother Megan in July. So we have 6 months of her salary that wasn't in the original budget. So 6 months of her salary and benefits were carried through. And our accountant, Jill Bryant, who I'm so thankful for, had shared with us that we can't actually just make that another revenue stream, that we have to record it separately as coming out of the investment funds. And so that's why that's off just a bit. And so what's interesting when we get down to the bottom line, we had budgeted what we thought would be a little bit of a surplus, $12,000. In actuality, we came up with a deficit of $17,000. If you then factor in that we were moving money from investment reserves to make sure that that was covered, if that had been just part of what was considered in our revenue, the net balance would have been $30,000. And the reason I'm pointing it out that way is to say everybody who has any kind of budget authority has done an extremely excellent job of managing the funds that were a part of their budget and not exceeding that. And of course, we have a process to be able to cover that. So we ended the year in a very positive note. Before we jump to the second page, and I'll pick up questions at the end. So before we do the second page, I'd like to jump to the third page if we could. And this is our financial overview. And it's just a very simple table that we look at monthly that Jill Bryant, our accountant, prepares for us. And you can see our total cash assets and investment assets as of the end of December. Our unrestricted cash assets were $562,500, and in our investment accounts, 233,000. So the total of those two is just shy of $796,000. When you look at the funds that are restricted, we have an additional $187,000, and so our total cash assets, investment assets, restricted and unrestricted, come in at $983,000. That's all separate from our money from our capital reserve. So we continue to operate in this range of $800,000 to $900,000, and we have for a couple of years. We used to call this our reserve, but as we started working with this, we determined, because most of it was in our Colorado Episcopal Foundation funds, they were investment funds, and that's why the decision was made to use them to fund an associate rector for 2 years and to start using those funds rather than just have them sit there. So when we look at that, we still are in a very healthy place in terms of the money that we have. Below that, you see the schedule of the temporary designated funds, and this just shows January 1st, 2024, what we had, what has come in since then, what we have spent out of those funds, and whereas of 12/31, what our balance was. So a lot of numbers there, and certainly can speak to that at questions. At the very bottom of this table, you will see 3 lines starting with rector discretionary, columbarium, and endowment. Those 3 combined with what we have as our other restricted funds come to that 187,000 up above. And those 3 down at the bottom, why we separate that out, the vestry cannot make any decision to use those funds because they are governed by church canons or diocese requirements and regulations. So the vestry couldn't say, well, let's move out of the columbarium funds some money. We can't do that. And so that's why we keep that separate. We actually keep that in a separate checking account. Going back to the top of the page, let me just mention on those investment assets, we made the decision, not knowing where we were going to be and what might happen with the market, to move funds out of Colorado Episcopal Foundation into a money market fund at our bank. It's drawing about 4.5% interest now. And so we left the $233,000 in CEF. That really functions for us as if we need emergency funding. Finance Committee a year ago talked to the fact that we need to have dedicated funds that we could access if we have a major emergency. And so that's what we left in CEF. But we have the other funds that are available, and that's at $562,000. So now I'll move you to that second page and talk about the operating budget moving forward. This is for 2025. The first thing that's important to note is it's a healthy amount. It's $841,000. And again, we are realizing that we have, as a part of our expenditures, the salary for Mother Megan, her salary and benefits. So when you look at how does that break down percentage-wise, almost 61%, 60.7% is for the people that serve within our church. So it's for our priests and it's for our other paid staff. Then our ministry funds comes in at 17%. Administration and communication is 4.6%. Our utilities, 4.9%. And then the facility maintenance is 12.8%. Then we look at our revenue estimates, and we realize that with our pledges that have come in, and we have more pledged dollars this year than we had pledged last year or the year before. So we're seeing actual pledges come up, but we reduced that unpledged number down to a number that we think is probably more viable. And again, that has always been, at best, an estimate, not knowing how that will perform. We have been surprised at how much has come in and unpledged. We talk about, well, what is that unpledged funding? And oftentimes, it's people that are new to the church who are giving regularly but have not yet pledged and may wait until the next pledged round. And so we collect that as plate offerings. So when we look at that, and then we figure in $127,000 that we will have to use again from investment funds, that leaves us with a deficit budget of $51,000. So we are going to need to move into our cash funds $51,000 for this next year. I need to interject at this point that as we think about budgeting for 2026 and preparing our annual fund drive for the operating budget, we really do need to focus on raising enough money to support our associate rector, because that's really the biggest change. Our expenses are relatively very manageable by what we get in terms of revenue, but to support 2 full-time priests, it does cause us to say we're going to need to raise more funds as we move into looking at the 2026 budget. When you look at the other highlights of this 2025 budget, is it did include a cost of living increase for staff, funding for the 2 full-time priests, and then continuing to support our outreach ministries. So we are maintaining our 10% to the diocese. We are maintaining 2% for the High Plains region. And in fact, we applied for a grant to help us in one area through High Plains region, and so we were funded that High Plains region area. And again, we had not given to that until Mother Kim joined us, and she really encouraged us to consider giving to that because it's an additional source of revenue for all the church in this High Plains region. And our outreach ministries. And an example with our outreach ministries is Samaritan Outreach. A couple of years ago, we were funding that at $35,000 to $4,000 a year. We now, last year and this year, we're funding it at basically 2%, $12,300. That was money that really helped us when we needed to support the Afghan family, but it's also the money that we are able to go through the Samaritan Outreach Committee to disperse. So we're doing a good job in terms of outreach. Obviously, if we have more money, then we would put more money into that outreach. So in addition to that, I mentioned the operating costs that we're keeping in the CEF funds, and that we're going to continue the funding for Mother Megan this next year. So when you go down and look at the highlights, you can see that our total pledges, this would be both the pledged amounts and what we anticipate for unpledged amounts, we're looking at that being $615,000. We are anticipating less other revenues, and so we have put that in at $48,000. So our total revenues, we are anticipating is going to be $663,000. Then you could see what our payroll and benefits and what our various costs are. Our ministries are up slightly. Total administration is down. We've done some consolidating with moving Maggie Knight into basically our parish administrator role. We increased Jill Bryant this past year extra hours every week because we didn't think she had enough hours to really manage all of our financial activity. You could see utilities up slightly. Our total building maintenance, we believe, will be less because of everything that's going on right now, which we believe the capital campaign is going to do a lot for our facility over the next several years. So when you get to the very bottom, total net after that adjustment, knowing that we have the money for Mother Megan set aside, is that $50,475, or basically, as I mentioned earlier, around $51,000. So we continue to have folks that are pledging, and I will tell you, I was concerned when we started the capital campaign because folks were being asked to contribute to a very ambitious plan and came through to the tune of over $2 million pledged so far on the capital campaign. And then in addition to that, then pledged for our annual operating budget. I was a little concerned that folks would say, well, we're going to do this big capital campaign, we won't fund our annual operating budget as much, and that was not the case. So it was a caution concern I had, but it came out in a very positive way. So it's just been amazing for me to think about how we continue to receive the funding and support within the parish that is providing support for the mission of St. Timothy's. Then if I can move you to the last page for a moment, and then I'll go to questions. I want to go back to the courage, connection, and care, and just remind you where that came from. You'll remember, people that are new to us may not have participated in some of the discussions, but we had an opportunity for the entire parish to participate to the degree that they wanted to discern what's the direction of our church. And everything that we have tried to do is to stay true to that direction, which is courage, connection, and care. So we're thinking about care both internally within our church, and how we connect with our small groups, connect with parish members that need support. But then we're also looking at how do we continue outreach and finding the most appropriate places where we can provide the opportunity to support. So you could see our mountaintop graphic comes out again of that discernment process, and we have fully funded the first 3 phases. There's been no money borrowed. This has been pledges and the money that has come in. But when we finish the Children's Chapel, which is getting closer and closer, we will need to, again, and we're anticipating around Easter time, similar to we did last year, coming back to the parish to say we need to remember that second year that we were planning on the capital campaign to be able to finish the projects that we're wanting to do downstairs. We don't know what the exact cost is going to be. Designs have been made, and we'll be ready to submit them for bids, and we'll be able to come back by the time we kick off this second half of the capital campaign. Again, Easter time, around that time frame. Now, one of the things that's happened with the capital campaign is some of the work has gone slower than we expected. And without overly stating this, but our permitting process has been pretty slow at times. In fact, I know Mother Kim has certainly felt the frustration, as we all have, in getting permits completed and being able to move forward. So it has slowed things down. We have been blessed with two major funders. We know one was for the HVAC system, which is operating now, and we're excited about. And the other was this wonderful surprise with a donor coming forward who chooses to remain anonymous. Only Mother Kim knows who it is. And they said, let's finish the upstairs, let's do the sanctuary. And so if you just look around and you look at what's been done with the upholstery, with the new finish, with what we have done with this area up here, the flexible space that has been created, the work that's gone on upstairs with our AV area, and what's been going on with the balcony, all of that work, still some to be completed, is outside of anything that came through the pledges. This is just a separate donation, and the donor has said that they will fund up to what it costs to complete. So we will not be using any other funds for this. That's a tremendous opportunity. So then what did we fund out of the pledges that we've received in addition to HVAC and this area? New parking lot lights, which were very necessary, and I know we had heard for years we need to do something about the parking lot, we need to do something about the lights, and we finally have done that. Some work on the exterior of the facility, work that's still ongoing within the narthex. We do believe that the children's chapel and everything in the office area and upgrades on the two restrooms up here will be finished. The target is to have that finished by the bishop's visit. I believe it's February 15th or 16th, February 16th is when it is. So this should all be completed at that time, which will be an exciting opportunity. So once again, I think I mentioned in my last paragraph in the operating budget summary, we can continue to succeed in being a vibrant, welcoming Christian community. We'll continue to see, I believe, growth as new people come in. And if you look around on Sunday mornings, you are starting to see several new faces that are here. Mother Megan, we are going to continue to see lots of rewards from bringing her onto our spiritual team, because she is doing such a great job of reaching out and connecting with people and building. Mary, how many were at our Godly Play?
14.
So we had 14 new people come in to be trained in Godly Play. It's really pretty amazing what we're seeing. That's going to continue. And I just want to mention once again, we are so much more than our financial reports, because we're really about this mission and direction. It certainly is exciting for me to look and see, and I still go back to a meeting that we had to say we're going to pay off that commercial loan that was still on the church, and it's $400,000, and I can remember going home and saying to Gail, Well, it's ambitious. We've not ever been in a church that could do that. And then it happened. And now we look at the capital campaign, and it happened. And we look at the support for our operations. It's a very tremendous place and a joy to be here at St. Tim's. With that, I'll open it to questions. And if I can't answer some, I may have to get back to you, but I'll be happy to do that. And Mary is monitoring online. Yes, Dixon.
Tim, you mentioned that.
Oh.
No, they can't hear me online.
It's for the online folks, Dixon. Thank you.
So you mentioned that pledges this year were up, but the amount is less than last year. So can you, I think you said part of that is due to unpledged pledges?
Right. We reduced the unpledged amount.
Okay.
That it really is the main difference in that why it's down, because our pledges are up. They're up, and this is just a basic number off the top of my head, Dixon, but I can give you the exact ones when we look at figures. But they're up $15,000, $18,000.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then one other quick question. The other revenues were like 60% of 40% of last year's other revenues. So what
Right.
was the reason for that drastic
So
reduction?
69,000 of it was that grant, or the ERC funding, which was $69,000. That was that employee retention funding that we applied for and that we got through so that's really the biggest part of that. Also, because we're not certain what our interest and capital gains are going to be, because we moved money out of CEF, even though we have for the current times, a pretty robust revenue. We weren't sure on that, so we were cautious about how much we budgeted for that. Excuse me.
Tim, first, on behalf of the parish community, thank you for all the work you and your team have done, Finance Committee and Vestry as well.
Thank you.
And this might be one where if you can just get us
Yes. So the question on that, and I'm going to ask Mary to jump in and help, because as senior warden, she's been very involved in this also. But we do not anticipate there is going to be much left for the downstairs when we're all finished. And part of that is how much of the pledged dollars have actually come in. So we're still waiting to see if there are some outstanding pledged dollars that we've not received yet.
So to add a little bit to that, so there is more pledged than has currently been received. I myself have not completed my pledge. So, but we have not spent any money that we have not already taken in. So we expect that by the time this floor is completed, we will have spent all the money that we've taken in and not gone over that amount. So we are only spending the monies that we have.
That might change, Tom, but it's just hard to calculate. So right now, we're not planning on that. Other questions? So one of the things, when you have a construction project like we've had, are surprises that until you really get involved into it, that may pop up. And we've had, through the HVAC work, a surprise that has popped up that's going to have to be incorporated into our work downstairs. We don't know exactly what that's going to be, but apparently, when this church was constructed, and we believe it had met code at that time, was an issue that the firewall, which for a building this size, was not completed to the extent that it needed to be completed. And this was uncovered when we got into the ceiling and looking at the firewall. So the area that we're talking about that wasn't completed is back by the columbarium, and it goes up on that side, and it's kind of triangular shaped. It was, for whatever reason, our HVAC contractor said that it wasn't completed. We don't know. We don't have an estimate what that would be. And the other area is downstairs, and it's at the very back wall of the parish hall. If you think about where that first classroom is, that part of the firewall, and it's on both sides, so it's back behind where the current library is. So we don't know what that cost is going to be, and that was not discovered until we had the work happen with HVAC. Now, we know we have more inspection to come to finalize, and we anticipate at that point they will tell us what we need to do, and that way we'll be able to get a bid for that. Not a surprise we wanted, but it is a surprise that occurred. Mary, any questions online? Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Never mind. They were all related to SAG.
Oh, okay. Dixon had another question. You want to take the mic back to Dixon, please?
So, back to the firewall. I first heard about this week in a meeting with Mother Kim and some of our Family Promise leadership team. If we end up, I'm just going to throw out a number, have to spend $150,000 to get the firewall on both floors fixed, is that money funded, or will that be money that we have to go into reserves for?
That will have to be new funding.
Okay.
It's not, because it was a fairly recent revelation.
Okay, so if we have to, that means this year, obviously. We can't proceed with the rest of the projects upstairs until the firewall on both floors is up to code. Is that correct?
Our understanding is we are okay with what we have done to this point upstairs. However, it will affect our work as we begin to move downstairs and really try to complete that. So there is a chance that whatever that cost is will have to be built in also to part of the next phase of the capital campaign.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Dixon. So in closing, first of all, thank you for coming early to listen about the budget. Obviously, you have some opportunity to look at this. If you have a specific question that I can answer, you can catch me before the service begins today, or you can send me an email, treasurer, sttims.net, or senior warden, which would be Mary, and we will try to get, what's that? Warden, just warden for Mary. And we will get specifics to you if you have that. And again, we have the annual meeting coming up in another week. Also, I just need one more time to say I'm so thankful that we have Maggie Knight in our office, that we have Jill Bryant working for us, that we have a finance committee that has been willing to listen to presentations over the monthly, chaired by Steve Packard, and we really appreciate Steve's diligence in that work. And I have to just say, Mother Kim has been remarkable, because it's probably not in most priests' job description to say I'm taking on the role of being a project manager. The other thing that has been so supportive of Mother Kim has been Donna Packard, because Donna has stepped in as junior warden and has taken a big load of seeing these projects through. She sent me her last spreadsheet, which is very detailed about every expenditure that has been made on the capital campaign project. And I don't question any of the numbers that are there, because I know Donna has been thorough, so we're very fortunate there. We also, as I mentioned, this vibrant church that we have right now are the ministry leads, people that are stepping up within the parish and taking greater leadership roles. It really is supporting where we're headed. So thank you all so much. I wish you the very, very best, and let's have a great, fulfilling 2025 as we look at our mission for St. Tim's. Thank you.